Right. Yeah. So, okay. What are the expectations for who Missouri is going to get for their next coach? And what are the expectations of the success for that coach? Just based on where they are, what division they're in, the path to the postseason, the real postseason, not the championship game, and how long do you think it will take this team to get there?
Well, I think as far as the expectations, just speaking for myself, I mean, I think whoever the coach is has to at least, win divisional championships and make appearances in Atlanta.
How often?
In the SEC championship game. I mean, I think that's something that would have to happen once or twice every 5 years.
Okay.
Or so. I mean, if Columbia, Missouri was more of a recruiting hotbed and you didn't have to go 2 hours to your east or west, I may adjust those expectations. But, given where they're at geographically, I think you win the division, a couple of times every 5 years and then have a year where you rebuild and, get your recruits back in there and then get them up to speed and, 3 years into the program. I think that's reasonable. As far as who I think that should be hired or could be hired, I'm sticking by Tom Herman. I mean, weeks ago, I wrote an article that was saying I thought that Mack Rhoades should lean on Pinkel to resign, take a job, as an administrator, and get somebody else in there because, like you always talk about, Damien, that 10-year rule. Pinkel's been there 15 years. It's time for a change. None of us envisioned him having non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that would create the resignation, but that's what I was pushing for weeks ago. I'm in favor of Herman. There was an NFL.com article that came out, I believe, earlier this morning that was talking about these collegiate head coaching jobs and that some NFL people were saying Tom Herman is the person who makes the most sense for Missouri. With that said, based on everything else that's going on at that university right now and what we've talked about, if they get Tom Herman, Mack Rhoades just did one of the most incredible sell jobs that I or anybody else has probably seen. I think it's probably more likely that we're looking at somebody like Barry Odom, to be honest with you, but I'm going to hold out hope that it's Tom Herman until I hear that it's factually somebody else.
I'm going to give you two names. You tell me how crazy I am.
Okay.
Mark D'Antonio.
Why would he leave Michigan State?
Because he can't get past Ohio State.
Does he think if he goes and coaches in the SEC that he's going to get past like Alabama?
No, but at least he'll get to the championship game.
Well, right, at least to get to the championship game. I don't know. I suppose other coaches would shock me more than somebody like that. I can certainly see where you could make the case that it's time for him to find someplace else.
Speaking of, this is what I wanted to say first. Gary Pinkel actually blows up my 10-year rule because his most successful years were probably his last 5.
Yeah, maybe going back a bit further to 2007, 2008. But he's certainly within the last 5 years, last 3 or 4 years even, he certainly replicated what he did in 2007.
Yeah, and I'll probably overvalue in the SEC here, and obviously the SEC East is probably trash. But to get a team in a new conference and have them in 2 championship games, year 2 and year 3, I think is a great accomplishment.
Yes, absolutely. Especially considering what a train wreck that first year in the SEC
my God.
was.
It was terrible. I went to their game at Tennessee, and I was like, "Who is this team, and how does this dude still have a job?"
Yeah.
The other name, Bo Pelini.
If you would have said this to me yesterday morning, I would have been on board with that a little bit more than I am. But after the story surfaced from the weekend against North Dakota State, I don't see how anybody can touch him. He just doesn't do himself any favors.
Well, they touched Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, I mean, are Petrino's issues like for everybody to see on the sideline of the football game and kind of, bullying, if you will, the referees? I don't watch enough Louisville football to know that.
No, I mean they're totally different issues. I mean, Petrino stuff is all off the field. I mean, the comparison is not fair in that regard, but Petrino certainly has issues from his past that preclude him from going back to Arkansas, which is where he belongs.
Yeah.
But who else is on the board? Go ahead.
I thought you were going to say somebody else, but before I say that somebody else and paint myself into the corner of being just completely, nuts and being fitted for a straitjacket, here are coaches that I think Missouri should consider. Tom Herman is obviously my number one preference. I mean, Herman, Fuente, because Fuente, he worked with Barry Odom. I think if you hire Fuente, there's a chance that Odom sticks around at least for another year, maybe.
That's a fair assessment.
So Herman, Fuente, and both of those guys have coached in Missouri's geographic footprint before, because Fuente, I think, was at Oklahoma under Bob Stoops. Mm-hmm. Herman spent some time at maybe Texas and TCU and Iowa State. So, I mean, I think that there are some characteristics that they bring to the table that, make it make sense. So those two guys, I would look at somebody like Larry Fedora, at least, talk to him. I mean, where I'm going with this is my preference is for Missouri to hire somebody with previous head coaching experience and having shown that they can be successful with it. It's somebody else that I would consider is the guy at Utah State, Matt Wells.
What about Whittingham down the road?
Yes, I think Whittingham is somebody that should be talked to because, I mean, he's one of those guys that's proven he will listen. If you reach out to him with a job, he will listen. And then, I mean, if Rhodes has to go completely through his list and he's getting rejected, then I think some current assistants to look at would be, Barry Odom. He's right there. I would look at Scott Frost. I know, there's been some laughter about that suggestion on Twitter, but I would look at Scott Frost. And somebody else that I would look at is the current defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, Aranda.
Okay, Is Missouri an upgrade for Larry Fedora? Or is he on easy street in that division in the ACC?
I think he's probably on easy street in that division, but I don't think that should stop Mack Rhodes from at least
making a phone
communicating
call.
with Fedora's agent,
sending some donuts over.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about assistants here. I have two names that are completely off the wall. The obvious one, I think you know where I'm going to go, is Kirby Smart.
He's kind of the coaching equivalent of crying wolf. He always says he's kind of interested in a head coaching gig, and he just keeps staying put. And I can't blame him for staying put and just, keeping his wagon hitched to Saban.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do that if you're having success with it?
How about Luke Fickell at Ohio State?
I like that name as well. He filled in there as acting head coach, I think, a few years ago,
right?
Didn't he?
Yeah, after Jim Tressel left the that year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that, especially. I mean, everybody's their own person, and the success of one guy doesn't, guarantee the success of another guy. But you look at what Herman has done, out of that Urban Meyer coaching tree, and I'd probably consider Luke Fickell as well.
Brady Hoke. That literally just came to my head. Just came to my head.
I wouldn't be blown away by that. That hiring Brady Hoke wouldn't excite me. Not at all. I mean, they could do significantly worse.
Yeah, Charlie Weiss would be worse.
Yes, exactly. Charlie Weiss would be a whole heck of a lot worse. Kind of along your Mark D'Antonio lines.
Narduzzi?
There's who?
Pat Narduzzi at Pitt, who left Michigan State.
That name crossed my mind. It did, and it did cross my mind. But the name that I was going to throw out is this. It seems like that there are grumblings with this coach at the program he's at now, even though he's had really high level success. And I there's no way that this would happen. No way at all. But what about the Mad Hatter, Les Miles?
Oh yeah, that's not happening.
No. But a name that could happen that's attached to Les Miles is someone like Mike Gundy.
I keep hearing that every year that Mike Gundy's ready to go, and I know him and his athletic director don't get along, but it's very tough for me to see him leave. Although, that said, no matter what happens after this year, he has all the leverage in the world because of how successful this year has been for him.
Yeah. And if the Big 12 gets shut out of the college football playoff for a second year in a row, you would have to think that most of those coaches are looking to get out.
All right, tell everybody where they can find you, Seth.
All right, you can find me. Well, I'm really not sure what podcast everybody can find me on. I'm kind of
everywhere,
floating around.
Yeah.
I'm everywhere. Tune into the SEC 411 or the Campus Pressbox podcast and see if my voice burns your ears. You can also find me on Twitter at @smarenbloom, and you can find all of my very opinionated writing on campuspressbox.com.
Okay, Damien Bowman on Twitter, DamienBowman. Email damien.bowman@campuspressbox.com. Seth is Seth.marenbloom@campuspressbox.com. He actually loves the email, so email him and don't email me. That would be wonderful.